Hey guys, Happy New Year. This is that man, and yes, light novel collection time. I thought I'd go out and get everything off my shelves and talk about my entire light novel collection. It's a pretty huge one, I must say myself. So, before we get into it, in the comments, go on, straight away, guess how much light novels I actually have in this collection. And at the end, why not go and check again to see if you got it right. Might be a little fun thing. So, without further ado, let's start talking light novels. Right, to start us off, we have Reign of the Seven Spellblades. Now, this is an interesting one because, yeah, I always put it down as it's a bit like Harry Potter, and that would be half true because they do go to magic school. However, this one does have quite a lot of cool things that Harry Potter did not. In fact, it's got a lot of really interesting things. First off, there's a lot of very well developed characters, and also including that, there's a tale of revenge. That's right, while Harry Potter was kind of just a magic boy who went to school and unfortunate things happened to him because he was the chosen one, this one has a character who is literally going around killing all of the teachers, who in turn are pretty sadistic and always out to kind of just go, well, you know, this is a magic school. If you die, that's just very unfortunate. It's a rather interesting one, and I think once the anime does get around to being released, it's one that I think is going to be very popular. At least I certainly hope so, because I am genuinely having a very good time with Reign of the Seven Spellblades. Next up is Orc Erika, which is interestingly by the same person as Mushoku Tensei, a series that I have read exactly one volume of and didn't read any more of. And this is about an orc who is not like any other orcs. He does not go around raping and pillaging women. He respects women. And yeah, that's about as much as I want to talk about this one. I didn't really love this one. I mean, the first one was kind of okay. It was interesting enough, but yeah, I kind of felt like the whole plot was starting to get a bit thin, and yeah, wasn't really hugely for me. Next up is The Girl That I Saved on the Train turned out to be my childhood friend, and this is another one of those comfy, cozy, slice of life romance titles that we will see many times in this video. Not gonna lie, I read volume 1 and I thought it was pretty okay. Check out my video at the start of the year for this one. But I never really was interested enough to go back to it, which is a huge shame because, yeah, I mean, I think the problem is a lot of these school series, school romance ones, there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of ones that do things really well, whereas I think you can kind of play with isekai a little bit enough to kind of have them be a little bit more intriguing and interesting, whereas a school setting, school romance setting, it kind of gets a little bit samey after a while. Still, this one was pretty okay. Next up, we have Sebikui Bisco, and yeah, this is probably the most unique title that I actually have. And again, I only read volume 1, and I really liked it. In fact, I really liked it. I had all intents and purposes of keeping up with this one. However, much like everything else, I started reading many volume 1s, and then just kind of, it spiraled out of control, and I realized I wasn't keeping on top of the series that I was actually genuinely more invested in. So sadly, this one ended up on his back burner. I do want to catch up on this one though, because it was a very unique fantasy title, and it's not really like anything else we kind of have seen in the whole of the light novel thing. It was a bit of a sad thing that the anime kind of came and went and everybody kind of forgot about it after volume 1, but yeah, very fun series. I'm really interested to see how it turns out. I will probably come back to this one at some point, not so much these two. Next up, we have Bofuri. I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. And honestly, this is probably one of my most favorite series that I'm reading at the moment. It's just so much fun. A young girl decides to start playing an MMO game. However, she doesn't want to get hurt. So what does she do? She puts all of her points into defense or vitality and thus breaks the system. Each of these is a very easy read, a very easy read. You can get into it in a few hours, but you know what it is? It's a lot of fun for it. It's one of those ones where you don't want to have a huge complex plot or anything like that. You just want to have something incredibly fun, incredibly cutesy, and still have a lot of really good times with it. And that is this one in a nutshell. Honestly, it is easily one of my favourite titles that I have been reading over the last few years. And yeah, it's one of the few ones I think that if I kind of stopped collecting light novels, I would still try and at least buy this one every other month. I think we are starting to come across towards catching up with the Japanese releases, which is a huge shame because having this one go down to once a year, it's going to be a huge pain. Next up is The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten, and this is another one where it's a cute slice of life series about a young girl who befriends a young man and they start getting together, and it's a cute fluffy romance that just constantly becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter as the series goes on. A very fun one. I think that this one again, I think this is going to be pretty big once the anime finally does come out, which I think is actually next season. So by the time this is actually getting released, it might have already aired, in which I can go, hello, are you watching it? Are you enjoying it? I hope the answer is yes. And yeah, it's a very fun one, it's a very cute one, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of all it is. I mean, I think this one I enjoyed more than The Girl I Saved on the Train, because I don't know, I just felt it really dialed the cuteness up to 100%, and it was just all the more better for it. The next one is Infinite Dendigram, and honestly this is the one where I feel like I've been hyping this one up so much over the last few years, for a few months even, since I started catching up on it, and honestly it is absolutely fantastic. The amount of world building in this one is absolutely immense. Each of these characters gets a huge amount of character development, and it's going to be one of those ones where if you have a favourite character, it's going to be somewhat frustrating to kind of not see them for quite some time. In fact, I think the main protagonist in this series hasn't actually been in since, I want to say, this volume. So I think this is volume 12. I can't remember. I think he has been in like here and there, but he's kind of like, he's taken a little bit of a backseat towards that, but that's not a bad thing, because like I said, all of these characters get their own little story arcs, they all get their own little things to do, and that just makes it more interesting. We have a lot of really good, well-developed characters here, rather than just having, you know, one or two main characters and everybody else is along for the ride. And look at this artwork on here. The artwork is absolutely fantastic, I'm not going to lie. I really do appreciate the artwork in this one. But yeah, if you want a really good MMO fantasy title that is something a little bit different, and has a lot of world building, has a lot of characters, and has a lot of things going on, a lot of plot threads, do try and pick this one up. I mean, the anime I think got to rank here, I think, possibly even a little bit less. It might have even been like volume 4. So yeah, there is a lot of content to get through with this one, but it is absolutely worth it. And honestly, it's one of those ones where I'm, again, much like Bofuri, I'm going to try and continue with it, because, you know, it's just that darn good. Next up we have Torture Princess, and you know what? This is a series that I absolutely love, but it's also a series that I very rarely go back to. I'm not going to lie, I only have 4 volumes of it, and I do hear a lot of things towards the end of the series that it goes off and it's not particularly great as the series goes on. But I read volumes 1 and 2 and I really enjoyed them, to the point that I bought volumes 3 and 4 and I just never went back to it. But if you want a very dark series, this one is definitely for you. Next up is Spice and Wolf, one of the first light novels I did check out, and yeah, I actually only have 3 volumes of it. I've got volume 1, 2 and volume 8, and the reason I got volume 8 is because I got this for like £2 or something like that, and I had full intention of buying all of the middle ones and just never did. So yeah, this one is a really fun one, a really classic anime, and yeah, I promise myself I will go back and read this one, because honestly it is such a good series. It is such a unique economics based romance fantasy series. And yeah, it's just a very, very good one altogether. I think if I do go back to it, I'm going to have to start again from the very beginning. But it's one I absolutely adore, and every time I come across the whole, when I do my top 10 light novels and stuff like that, this is always near the top. So yeah, it's a very good one. Very, very good indeed. Next up is Decapitation Kubikiri Cycle, The Blue Savant and the Nonsense User. Now, I'm going to be pretty honest with everybody here. I actually bought this about 4 or 5 years ago and I still haven't read it. The problem is, for me, with Nishiyoisin, is that his titles, or their titles, are very difficult to get into. They're very good, for the most part, but I find that they're very difficult to get into, and I know this one is actually still incomplete in terms of release. They've only released the first few of them, and that kind of put me off a little bit, but I don't know, there's something about the way he writes that it just puts me off sitting there wanting to actually read any more of the titles. So yeah, unfortunately this is one where it's going to be sitting on my shelf for quite some time. I can't imagine myself I'm going to go back to it anytime soon. It's just like I said, their titles are very hit and miss, and I really did burn myself on Monogatari. I just kind of got to a point in Monogatari where I was just like, I just don't want to read any more of this. But I was enjoying it and it's kind of one of those ones where it's hard to go back to. I think I'll try it out eventually. I just can't imagine when. But it's still in my collection, I suppose. Next up is 2 volumes of I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 years and max out my level. Now, this is actually another one which I really did enjoy when I was reading it. It was a nice, cute, comfy, cozy series about a girl who goes around killing slimes for cash and maxes out their level, and they become super overpowered, but just want to have a nice, relaxing life in their retirement, I suppose. I only read 2 volumes. I think it's on like volume 10 or volume 11 over here, and it's one that I always see I want to go back to and reread and then catch up on. But again, it's another one where I kind of feel like I don't know if I ever will. But I don't know, this is one of the ones where it's kind of like at the back of my collection. So I don't know, I just don't see it enough to kind of go, oh yes, I'm going to go read that again. But yeah, I really enjoy this one. I really like it. It's just, again, it's another one where I kind of stopped and just never went back to it, unfortunately. Ah yes, this next one is one that is the butt of all jokes when it comes to isekais. But you know what? Reborn as a vending machine, Now I Wander the Dungeon, is genuinely one of the most fun and unique isekai titles I've ever read. The guy loves vending machines and he dies in a vending related accident and gets reborn as a vending machine. Of course he can't walk around or anything, but still manages to be super overpowered, and a lot of it comes down to him interacting with the characters around him and the village that he ends up as. He becomes kind of like the focal point of the village, and you do get a unique way of doing things with this one, and there's a lot of very unique world building around this vending machine and the lives and things that go along with it. But yeah, it's one of those ones, I really like it. I think it gets a lot of bad rap for just being a vending machine and being a really funny, weird choice, but I'm not gonna lie, this is genuinely one of the best vending machines, and the same author will actually do another light novel that I will cover in later on in the video. And again, yeah, they are very good at what they do. They have a lot of passion, and whenever they do a novel series, you can tell they have that passion behind them, and it makes that series just a little bit better. Another one I do want to reread, and another one that I hope, because there's an anime coming, we will get to see a lot more from this in the near future. Fingers crossed, because this one is genuinely a good one. Next up is one of the first light novels I ever read. Sound Euphonium, I'm a huge fan of the anime for this. This basically covers season 1, and then they released it, and that's all they've done. They've never done any further light novels for it, and I kind of got the impression that this one didn't sell too well for them. In fact, I'm led to believe that even the anime release for this particular series, even though there's a lot of people who absolutely adore it, from what I understand, it doesn't sell particularly well to make it kind of that, I don't know, a must-have for licenses to pick up or anything like that. Prove me wrong if I am wrong on that though, but yeah, I kind of got the impression this came out about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've never seen anything else since. And I'm not going to lie, this one was a bit of a difficult read, I remember, but it was one of my first light novels, so maybe my opinion might change on it. So I'm kind of contemplating rereading this one and kind of going back through it again, maybe. But yeah. It's a really good series. I really love this one, so yeah, do check it out if you ever see it, because it's always on sale, super cheap. Next up is High School DXD, and this one actually, the review video for this one is still one of the most light novel videos, most popular ones that I ever have. I like this one. Again, this is another one that I really wanted to keep up on. I just never really got the chance to, and it's been that long now that it kind of intimidates me having to buy quite a few. But yeah, if you like the anime, go check this one out, because there's a lot more content for a start. You do lose that visual aspect, but I feel like this is a bit more mature than the anime. I went back and watched the anime, and I still couldn't get into the anime after reading this. It just felt very kiddie. The dub especially felt very childish, but the light novel was genuinely a good one. So yeah, go check it out. I think I got volume 2 digitally for this, so maybe someday when I've caught up on everything else, I will go back and binge it all. Not likely. Next up is one that I actually got free with a Blu-ray, which is Time of Eve, Another Act, which is actually just the novelization of Time of Eve, as far as I'm aware. This is a very interesting, if robots were like humans kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not going to go into too depth with this one, because pretty much anything I say about this is going to spoil things. But yeah, definitely check this one out, because it's a very unique title and it's a very fun one. Next up is another one that I meant to do a video on this one, but I think I recorded it, and I think I was so bored with just talking about this one, I just never ever published it, because there's not very much visually. And this is If the RPG World Had Social Media. Yeah, and this is a lot of a weird one. There's only 1 volume to this. I thought it was going to be a whole series, but it's not. And this is actually a romance between the hero and the daughter of the demon lord. And yeah, they kind of just text each other, they fall in love, and then the hero's going to go and vanquish all of the demons and stuff like that. It's kind of boring, I'm not going to lie. I just couldn't get into this one, and I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely forgot I even read it. Even when I picked it up, I'm kind of struggling now to kind of say much about it. But yeah, it's not that great, to be honest. Next up we have Pretty Boy Detective Club, and you know what? This one was quite a fun one. I'm not going to lie, it was a bit more of a detective series with the whole of the Nishiyoisin kind of wordplay, and you know what? Like I said, this is the thing with decapitation, because like I said, I kind of burnt myself on Monogatari. I started this one, and I actually quite enjoyed it as a nice change of pace. I couldn't recommend it to everybody. I think this was another one where I reviewed it, and then I kind of, as much as I liked it, I didn't really have much of an opinion on it to kind of do a full video on. But yeah, I'd recommend going checking this one out if you want more Nishiyoisin goodness and haven't been completely burnt out. The only thing though is that, again, I think that this one didn't really sell too well, so I don't think they've done many volumes of it. At least it's very much incomplete the last time I heard. But yeah, it's a huge shame, because I think this seems to happen with a lot of Nishiyoisin's titles. I don't know if they kind of Kodansha kind of go, oh, Nishiyoisin, that's a name that will that's got some brand recognition, and they release it, and then people only seem to care about Monogatari from him, and that's a shame, because I always feel like if you're going to at least start releasing something, at least try and finish it as much as possible. Next up is another one that I did do a video on and I quite liked, but I'm not gonna lie, I never ever saw another volume of this. But then on the other hand, I never really looked, so it's pretty much another one which I can safely say is in my collection, but I probably, if I was trimming the fat, this is another one. But I did enjoy it. So this is about a young man who dies and then is reborn as essentially a zombie, and then yeah, Necromancer's there and he stages a revenge plot to overthrow him, and then there's this paladin who's like the perfect paladin who falls in love with him and he bites her and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a while. I kind of forgot a lot of what happened in this one, but I did do a full video on it, so again, go check that one out if you are interested in a full-on review of it, because I think I did a better job there. And it's like I said, it's just another one of those ones. I read volume 1, I remember enjoying it, I remember the general overall plot, but because it's been so long, I probably won't ever go back to reading any more of it. A huge shame. The next one is, again, this follows the same trend of enjoyed it, but then I kind of stopped and then, yeah, never went back to it, and that is another one that Day Alive. So this fills the void. I always lump this one and High School DXD together, and the reason being is because they are both very long running series, and I did really enjoy volume 1 of both Day Alive and High School DXD. However, they were long series and I kind of just stopped reading them. Again, I think much like High School DXD, I think I bought volume 2 and volume 3 digitally for this and just never went back to it. And again, it's another one that I did fully intend to do a huge video on, and I just never had the chance. Maybe I just will go back to it someday, but I don't know. I've got that many series that I need to catch up on, and I'm just getting nowhere fast with stuff. I mean, at the moment it's taken me a week, if not 2 weeks, to read some volumes of light novels. So yeah, I used to be on like one a day when I was working from home, but now I'm kind of like one every other week or so yeah, it's kind of like I'm not getting any faster. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. I want to go back to this one because I hear huge things about this series. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Just never enjoyed it to keep on top of it, unfortunately. Such is life. Right, next up we have interspecies reviewers. So now this is one where I think that the anime is legendary enough, and you know what, this one is good too. It actually goes one step beyond. That's right, it goes beyond plus ultra, and yeah, pretty much it goes all of the way, if you know what I'm talking about. And for that, if you want that kind of thing, it is the perfect one for it. So yeah, very unique title in my collection. It's nowhere near the best, but you know what, in terms of what it tries to do, there probably hasn't been paralleled. Yeah, a very fun series. I don't know if there's any more to it. I've got 2 volumes. I don't think I've seen a 3rd volume or anything like that, but yeah, definitely worth checking out if you are a fan of that particular series and that particular genre. Next up, we have another one which I have heard a lot of good things about, and that is Chitose is in the Ramune Bottle Volumes 2 and Volume 1. Now, this is one that I feel like when they got announced at the end of last year and when they were coming out, I heard so many people getting so excited for this one that I had to check it out. And you know what? As a school comedy series, it is absolutely fantastic. It is worth a lot of the hype and everything that's around it at the moment. It's not one of my favourites, but it's just a really fun one. I haven't discovered why he's in the Ramune bottle yet. There is actually no Ramune so far in the series, but yeah, if you like your kind of slice of life school times with bits of mysterious things going on, not supernatural, just kind of day-to-day things, yeah, you're gonna have a good time with this one. I will write up a good review for this one, maybe after volume 3, and explain it a little bit better. But yeah, it's worth the hype in my opinion. Next up, we go from one that I really enjoyed to one that is absolute trash, and it's quite good for it, and that is The Hidden Dungeon Only I Can Enter. Now, I did talk about this one not so long ago in one of my videos, and I actually bought all of volumes 1 to 5 for about £20, so it was less than £5 a volume, because I'm not gonna lie, light novels just do not sell where I live, and the places that I go to buy manga from, they often do light novels on clearance, so you can often get them up to 50% off. I'm getting like volumes of like Wandering Witch or Classroom of the Elite and stuff like that for 50% off because they're just not selling, which is a huge shame. But yeah, more to the point, this particular series is absolute trash, but it's a fun kind of trash. It's about a young boy who discovers that he's got this hidden dungeon only he can enter, and he gets more powerful by doing things with girls. That's right. So from kissing to cuddling to headpats to much, much more, he gets more and more experience from doing them kind of things, and he's got a harem that all absolutely adore him and let him do those things. It's a consenting relationship. But yeah, it's absolute trash. I'm not gonna lie, it's absolute rubbish, but it's a fun, very fun series. Yeah, so if that's kind of your thing, check it out, I suppose. Next up, we have Restaurant to Another World. Now, I have all of Restaurant to Another World because I think at the moment there's only 5 volumes. I don't know if volume 6 is in Japan now. It kept advertising it, I just never ever saw anything more, and honestly, I love this one so much. I don't hear anybody talking about this one at all. I don't think I've ever seen anybody even say they're reading it. But this one just very, very narrowly missed out on my top 10, and the reason it probably did miss out was because of the fact that it just is only 5 volumes. So this is about a young girl who comes across this restaurant to another world, and it's an isekai, but all of the dishes kind of go to being related to somebody discovering this door in another world, and they go and they have food and they have a good time, and then everyone's all related, and it's all that kind of fun, good times. If you want a really good series that's going to make you really, really hungry, this is the one that you want to be reading, because it's a really good one, and I absolutely love my time with it every single time. It just makes me so hungry for Japanese cuisine. So hungry. Next up, we have Monster Musume, Monster Girls on the Job. Now, this is actually being written by the person who did Monster Girl Doctor, which is a series we will talk about very shortly on this video. And you know what? I'm a huge fan of that series. I do like my Monster Girl series, and this one was okay. I enjoyed it enough as more Monster Musume content, but that's about it. It's not going to set the world on fire. It's just general slice of life fun with monster girls and a few of the characters doing job things. In fact, actually most of the characters doing job things. It's just kind of that filler volume if you want more monster girl stuff. I'd recommend picking it up, but compared to Monster Girl Doctor, it feels like a huge step back, and it kind of has my same opinion as the Monster Musume series, where it's fine. I really like a lot of bits in it, but then yeah, I mean, I'm not as fussed about the series as I was a few years ago, and that's a huge shame. But yeah, if you want more Monster Musume stuff, go check this one out. Next up is a title that, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't even read this one. So this is Anime Supremacy, and I got this as a gift a few years ago, and I just haven't read it. I believe it's about making anime. We will check on the synopsis. Yeah, but yeah, it's a light novel about making anime, and you know what? I actually kind of lost this one, but yeah, I found it, and you know what? I'm gonna read it because I've been really wanting this kind of thing, because I absolutely adore Shirobako. I really adored Pompo the Cinephile. So yeah, anything that kind of gives me more of that, I kind of want to read it. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's in my collection. I've had it for about 6 or 7 years. I haven't read it, but I'm looking forward to reading it. So maybe next year I can talk about this one a little bit more. Next up is Nier Automata, Yora Boys, and Nier Automata Long Story Short. So these are novelizations of the Nier Automata video game series, a series I absolutely love. I read this one and it's kind of the novelization of the game. I never actually went back to read this one yet, so I probably should do that at some point, because yeah, more Nier is more good. I think this is a prequel one. So yeah, if anybody's read it, let me know, because I'm quite interested in seeing how it goes. So next up we have Konosuba. That's right, all of Konosuba in one entire video. Lucky you guys. As you can probably tell, things have changed since I last did this video. Yeah, Christmas has happened and now I have time to once again look at doing this video. So Konosuba, absolutely hilarious series, one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I always chop and change on whether or not it's my favorite or not, but it is one of my favorites. It's always such a really good series, hilarious, a lot of over the top ridiculous characters, and you know, it's just one of those things that it's just one of those series that just really makes you smile and feel happy and ridiculous. Unlucky character gets reborn in another world and he decides to pick a goddess. However, that goddess turns out to be absolutely useless. Throwing that, a Chunibyo who really likes to use the word explosion and explosion magic, a useless priest, a crusader who is absolutely impossible, can't hit anything, but is a very good tank. In fact, actually really enjoys being hit, along with a protagonist who is, well, he's pretty much scum with a heart of gold. This one ran for 17 volumes and honestly every single one is an absolute gem. I'm really sad to see it go, and yeah, I got the entire collection, so always nice to have one that's complete and doesn't outstay its welcome, which is something we will get onto in a few short minutes. So yeah, that is Konosuba. Along with Konosuba the series, we also have Konosuba TRPG. So this is an RPG, a tactical RPG, so a bit like Dungeons and Dragons, except more Konosuba based. It's quite funny just to actually read the ridiculous stats and stuff like that you can do with this game. We haven't had a chance to play it yet, unfortunately, but hopefully we will in the near future. As well as Konosuba, we have two Konosuba spin-offs. So the first one, we have Konosuba, an explosion on this wonderful world bonus story, volume 1 and volume 2. This takes place after volume 9 and focuses on the character of Megumin along with a few other characters who appear throughout the series. A fun little spin-off. And we also have Konosuba, an explosion on this wonderful world, which again focuses on a prequel for Megumin. Again, very fun. This one's getting an anime adaptation very soon. Sadly, those are the only ones that Yen Press have actually released. I know there are a few other Konosuba titles out there. For example, there's one, I think it's Dust, I believe he's called. So yeah, it's a shame that we can't get a little bit more, but hey, it's nice that we have getting a few anyway. So next up we have That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, and this one is absolutely insane. As of recording this, there are 15 volumes out in English, and each one is roughly, it starts off around 300 pages, but each one gets to about 400 pages long, and honestly this one is absolutely ridiculous. I just recently read volume 15 and I had a few issues with it, and we'll not get too much into that, but it is one where it's kind of like your shonen battle manga in which a character gets reborn as what is perceived to be a weak character but ends up super overpowered and super strong and just introduces tons and tons and tons of characters before kind of like having to up itself. It's a bit like Dragon Ball Z with, you know, the ridiculous power-ups and ridiculous fights and over-the-top characters and just having a massively bloated amount of characters. But on top of that, we do get a rather interesting city building and very political series as well that kind of introduces a lot of interesting things. I mean, each of these volumes kind of is more and more interesting than the last. It just gets very difficult with a lot of the characters. You kind of forget who a lot of these characters are after a while, which is a huge shame, but yeah, it's not bad for it. It is an absolutely ridiculous series that, yeah, a few people love it and a few people don't, but I'm not gonna lie, I do like it. I like it a lot. The next one is another long series as well, and this is ReZero. Now, I'm only up to volume 18 because I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty unsure if I actually want to continue buying this one. The only reason being is that as much as I like it, and while volume 1 was the very first light novel I bought, or at least one of them, it just never seems to be ending. I believe the series is now on about 35 volumes in Japan, and it doesn't show any sign of actually ending, which to me, because I've already run out of space on 18 volumes, I just don't know if I'm ever going to buy any more and fill up all of that space. At least what little space I've got. The series itself, however, is absolutely fantastic. A young man is reborn into another world. Well, I say reborn, he is restarted into another world, and he befriends a beautiful girl, and wanting to help out, he helps her find her missing locket, or bracelet, or whichever you want to call it. And upon that, he stumbles into many difficult situations. However, whenever he dies, he is reborn or restarts from the last save point, if you will. However, keeping all of his mind intact, and that results in a very interesting series, one that I don't really feel has been replicated in many other series. A lot of really cool things happen in this one, a lot of interesting time travel, wibbly wobbly kind of things happen in it, and an interesting cast of characters that just seems to get bigger and bigger with each arc. At the moment, I believe that the anime got up to volume 15. So yeah, the light novel in English is a little bit further ahead of the anime itself. So yeah, plenty of content out there if you want to get into it. I will always have the nostalgia of this one being one of my first light novels and the one that really got me into reading light novels, but yeah, it is a little bit long at the moment. But hey, it's long but consistently great. That's the only thing, consistently great. It also comes with a few extra titles. I haven't bought all of the extra ones yet. The first one was really good. The second one I was a little bit bored with. I think there is a few others, and a lot of people see you're kind of at the point now where you need to have read them in order to get the full experience of the series. But I probably won't get around to reading them, at least anytime soon. Right, next up we have the Saga of Tanya the Evil. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm missing volume 11, which I believe came out a few weeks ago, but I haven't actually read volume 10. This one is an intense read, an absolutely intensive read. Each volume is around 300 to 400 pages, sometimes even more, and yeah, it's the most unique writing style I've seen in a light novel. It's all very much war memoirs and historical battles and stuff like that. A young guy absolutely pisses off God and ends up reborn on the wrong side of World War I as a young girl. And the only way she's going to survive is, well, to take everybody down and just not get killed in the process. It's a very intense series, but it's absolutely worth checking out if you can get beyond volume 2 plus ultra. This volume, from what I understand, originally the series was supposed to end at the end of volume 2. However, it kind of got popular and kept going, so he tried to wrap everything up in volume 2. But yeah, it just ended up being, once you get past volume 2, it's it's a lot easier to get into and a lot easier to digest, but still it's an absolutely fantastic series if you can get past that. Did anybody see Monster Girls? Well, too bad if you didn't, because next up is Monster Girl Doctor, and you know what? For an ecchi series that is about a doctor curing Monster Girl illnesses via ecchi means, this one is actually incredibly good. There's a lot of really good ecchi scenes in here, but there's a lot of really good, well thought out things in terms of the Monster Girl lore and world. It's not going to be for everybody, but you know what? It's definitely worth picking up if you want a decently written ecchi series that actually thinks about one of the most popular memes, tropes that I think we had a few years ago. I mean, we don't get them quite as often as we used to, but hey, Monster Girls are still popular, and this one is absolutely worth reading if you can get into that. Next up we have Rascal Does Not Dream. So we have Rascal does not dream of a sister venturing out. Rascal does not dream of his first love. Dreaming girl. Sister home alone. Ooh, watch out, Home Alone. Those wet bandits will come and attack the sister. Siscon Idol. Logical Witch. Petite Devil Kohai. And Bunny Girl Senpai. I think this is always known as Rascal Does Not Dream of a Bunny Girl because that's what the anime called it, but this one is an absolutely fantastic one again. A really good series. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a very hard one to talk about as well, though. I'd say there's a lot of interesting wordplay, a lot of high school shenanigans and stuff like that, but yeah, this one's really good. Go check it out. Next up we have Combatants Will Be Dispatched. Now this is only 5 volumes and this is written by the same person who did Konosuba. However, it's not quite as good as Konosuba, and quite frankly, after I finished reading this one, I kind of forgot about it. It's kind of forgettable. It's fine for what it is, but in the anime it didn't really make the waves that I was expecting it to. I was expecting this to be an absolutely huge series, but people just didn't really care for it, which was quite surprisingly. If you like Konosuba and you want more Konosuba-like stuff, check this one out because it started before Konosuba and ended after Konosuba. The author went back to it, but there's a lot of tropes and stuff like that in here that is pretty much the same as Konosuba. So yeah, if you like one, you're probably going to like the other one. Next up we have Toradora. I absolutely loved this one. This was probably one of my favourite high school light novels, and yeah, it's just such a fun, over-the-top, but still down-to-earth romance slice of life title about a young guy who's head over heels for this girl, and this girl who's head over heels for another guy who just so happens to be best friends with each one, and then they slowly start to get together and start being friends with each other and getting themselves closer and closer. It's a really good treat, and I would recommend checking this one out. It's got a really good anime adaptation, so good that I would probably say if you have seen the anime, you probably don't actually need to watch this this version as well. So yeah, it's still a great, fantastic series, but yeah, good. Next up is Wandering Witch, and this fills the Kino journey shaped hole that, yeah, we don't have Kino's journey over here. So this is about a young girl named Elena who goes on a journey, and she goes to many interesting places with interesting people, and it's a number of short stories. All of these are all short stories about the people she meets, the country she travels to, and the weird stories that come out of it. It's a really fun title, and it's a really fun fantasy title actually. It's not an isekai or a slice of life. Well, it's kind of slice of life fantasy. But yeah, it's a really good one. I always love reading this one. I think volume 9 might actually be out. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen it anywhere. But yeah, it's a really comfy title with a lot of darkness inside. There's a lot of interesting dark times in here, but yeah, I always recommend reading this one. It's a really fun title. Next up we have 86, and I've only got volumes 1 to 7 of this. The reason being is that volume 8 seems to have went straight out of print, or at least I've never seen a copy of volume 8 anywhere. It just never seems to be in stock since it very first came out, so I just never caught up. I actually am only on to volume 5 of this one. I started volume 5 and I just kind of was like, well, if I can't get volume 8, it's going to always be incomplete and it's always going to annoy us. But I really enjoyed volumes 1 to 4. There's something just completely different about this particular series, and I think everybody really likes this one. It had a really good anime adaptation. It was one of those ones where kind of like volume 1 came out and a lot of the light novel community just went mental for it. It kind of saw it coming that was going to be a popular one, and I'm glad that it actually is. It is a really good series. Next up we have a newcomer. This is one that I bought volume 1 of, and I didn't dislike it, but I wasn't 100% sold on it. But I did pick up volume 2 rather cheap, and that was the critical thing that got me into Spy Classroom. This one is really interesting. It's about a bunch of girls who essentially go into a spy academy and are trained to be super spies. Each of them have their own unique thing they can do, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. The only thing is that I don't like the main character, Klaus. I kind of feel like it's a little bit too hand-holdy. I kind of wish you would just leave it up to the girls now that they're kind of, as of volume 4, they're kind of somewhat trained. It just kind of feels like it's kind of like he's holding them back. He's kind of like he's there to kind of save them whenever things go really wrong. But yeah, it looks like they're kind of getting more and more standing on their own, which I'm really looking forward to seeing more. So once they do ditch the main character Klaus, I'm kind of expecting a lot of great things to come from this one. Next up is a series that I have a love-hate relationship with this one, because I kind of binged all of this and I was just like, oh, you know, this is a kind of a ridiculous, silly little title that not everyone's going to love, but it's just got a lot of fun moments in and a lot of cringy moments. But it was a nice kind of palate cleanser, so to speak. But then I just kind of buy more volumes and I'm just like, I don't really fancy reading this, so it kind of stays on my shelf. So this is, suppose a kid from the last dungeon boonies moved to a starter town. About basically that is the plot. A young kid who is the weakest in his starter town. Sorry. A young kid who is the weakest in his village, which just so happens to be the last village before the final boss, moves to a starter town, and he's kind of weak, and he's kind of like, oh, I'm just weak and not very good, and then ends up being stupidly overpowered in terms of the starter town. But yeah, it kind of gets more and more ridiculous as it goes on. I'm not really sure how much content there is and how much can kind of keep going, but yeah, I mean, the first few volumes, they're fun enough, but it's just not anything particularly special. I think if I was getting rid of series, this would definitely be one that I would probably start offloading first. Ah yes, another huge pile. So next up we have So I'm a Spider, So What? And this one is another one of those reincarnated as a thing. And yeah, this one's a really good one. A one that I feel the anime just never give it the right amount of justice for. A young girl is, well, pretty much killed along with the rest of her crew. I was going to say crew. The rest of her class. You can tell I've been recording this for quite a few hours now, can't you? And she is reborn as a spider, the lowest of the low, and she literally has to try and survive and just keep on surviving before she gets killed. And yeah, it just gets so ridiculous. There's so many great plot points in this one, so many great characters as well. There's a lot of absolutely fantastic characters, and each of them get their right amount of development. I mean, for example, early on we kind of go between the spider and the heroes, before the kind of heroes disappear around volume 5, before coming back and getting a whole kind of prequel arc that you kind of like see, and everything starts falling into place at that point. It's just one of those ones, it's just everything about this one is just so fantastic. I think volume 15. This is the second last volume. I think there's only like one more volume after this, so it's one that's going to end soon. And this was another one which I kind of got very early on in my light novel collecting, so I'm going to be quite gutted to see that one go. But hey, always nice to see series end rather than go on indefinitely. Guys, we have a living legend in our midst. That's right, we have Haruhi Susana. Now, this is an interesting one because this is one where I really enjoyed volume 1, and as it went on I kind of became less and less interested with the series. It never got bad, I just kind of, I don't know, I just felt like it peaked at the first 3 or 4 volumes, and then after that it kind of felt that it just kind of kept plodding on. I don't think I've even got all of these, but I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember the order of them, and I can't remember where I stopped. I think this is the next one I need to read, possibly, maybe. But yeah, it's a fun enough series. I just feel like it's one of those ones that it's like a living legend, really. Everybody knows Haruhi Susana, who is into anime, and it's kind of one of those ones I felt I had to get just to kind of try it out, and it was fine. It just, like I said, I just kind of got a bit bored towards the end. I think maybe I would probably watch it rather than read it again. Incoming, we have more ecchi. That's right, we have Do You Love Your Mom and a 2-hit multi-target attacks, a series that just had an absolutely absurd premise. I had to buy it, and you know what? It's not nearly as bad as people who haven't read the series make it out to be. So this is about a young guy who enters an online world that is basically geared around moms, and he ends up bringing his mom with him, and she is just so overpowered that all of the kids in it are just not overpowered, and eventually we get a whole collection of moms who are just being overpowered and ridiculous while they're fighting these, I don't know what to call them, like kind of like these guys who are just like, oh well, we hate moms and all of that stuff. And yeah, it's absolutely bonkers, but you know what, it's a really good series. It's a really fun one. It is an ecchi one. The mom basically, as you can probably see by the covers, it basically gets a new outfit like every single time, and it's like, well, this is the school arc and this is the bunny girl arc and that kind of thing, and it's like, yeah, it's ridiculous. And yeah, it's a really fun series, not for everybody's taste, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. Also complete, another one that is finally complete. Next up, from the same author as the Vending Machine Isekai, we have the NPCs in this village sim game must be real, and again another fantastic one. Only 3 volumes, but this is about a young man who starts playing a game and he's just like, oh, these villagers seem really real. It says the thing on the title, and yeah, it's a really good one. I really enjoyed it. Really unexpected how good this one was. Yeah, I recommend checking it out. I have mentioned this one a few times, so go check out one of my other videos at the end of this where I have discussed this one in a bit more depth. Next up, we have Erina the Vampire Cosmonaut. Now, I'm not gonna lie, out of all of the series I've read this year, this is probably my favourite one. This is so good. This is about a young cosmonaut hopeful. It's basically a retelling of the space race, except more on the Russian side of things. Yeah, and yeah, this cosmonaut wants to go into space, and the Russians have a secret new thing they're gonna do. They're gonna launch a vampire girl into space, because vampires don't count as people, so it doesn't count as signs going experimenting on humans, because it's a vampire. Technical limitations. Yeah, really fun one indeed. Next up, we have Perfect Blue. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't read this one. This is actually the second one, so I need to track down the first one. This one, along with Division Maneuver 2 and 1, don't know why I said it in the opposite direction, they were all £5 each, so I picked them up. Good to see some old 7 Seas titles back in print, I suppose. So yeah, Division Maneuver, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems with this one, a lot of problems indeed. The hero is essentially born as this young boy, and yeah, he teams up with this boob girl who they're gonna kill all of the space aliens, except they fall in love, and yeah, a lot of ecchi moments, a lot of cringy ecchi moments in this one. I'm going to do a full video on this one someday because there's a lot of things to talk about. It's just going to be fun to rip apart, but yeah, it exists, and it exists in my collection. So next up we have Ascendance of a Bookworm. Now, I'm not going to show every single one of these because, yeah, this one's one where you kind of, the more you read into it, the more you get spoiled. And honestly, this one is one of my favourites. And if you guys remember my top 10 and top 50 videos, my top 10, this one actually ended up around, I think it was like number 3 or something. Rather than before, when it was a top 50 video and it was like number 12 or something. It was just outside of the top 10, but honestly, this one is just such a good series. A young girl called Mine, who absolutely loves books, is reborn into a world where books are a scarcity, and it doesn't help that she's been reborn as a poor, sickly child. So her quest is to get books. There's a lot to this one. Like I said, this is one that I have absolutely no issue with collecting physically because it is that good. It is such a great series, and G Novel Club just do absolutely beautiful releases. Some of my absolute favourite releases of all time have came from G Novel Club. I just wish they'd expand and get more of their library out so I can buy them and complain that I just do not have the space for all of them. But yeah, Bookworm absolutely comes 100% recommended. Right, we're on to the hardcovers now. So some of these are light novels, some of them are not. I'm just going to kind of go over them all briefly anyway. So first up we have, well, it's an encyclopedia of monster girls. That's right, the greatest encyclopedia the world has ever known, if you like monster girls. So yeah, it exists and it's on my shelf. Very good, light reading, if you want to put it that way. Light reading indeed. Next up is actually the last book I read in 2022. Tomohiko Morimi's The Tatami Galaxy. Absolutely fantastic title, fantastic author. I am going to quickly show off some of their other titles, but I will do a full-on video on all of their titles in the near future. I'm so excited to get into it, but honestly, fantastic title. Next up we have what is actually a reprint of my very first light novel ever, and that title was The Full Metal Panic. So yeah, this was my very first light novel. I bought the Tokyo Pop versions of them ages ago. However, they're all in storage now, so yeah, I actually haven't read anything beyond the first 3 volumes that's in here. I have read 4 and 5, originally the Tokyo Pop ones, but these 3 here, haven't read them. Someday I will, and I'll do a huge video on it. Maybe. Hopefully. We will never know. Next up is Sleeers Collector's Edition #1. Now, I really like the Sleeers. I did do a review on this one earlier on in the year. It's just your classic fantasy title. Very classic indeed. I never ever saw anything beyond Volume 1 to buy though. I know Volume 2 came out maybe July, August time, but just never saw it. So I just kind of forgot about it, and yeah, unfortunately, I think unless I actually catch up on all of my to-read list, I can't see myself going back to get this one anytime soon, which is a huge shame, to be honest. And we also have Yokohama Station SF, again another one. I think there was a Volume 2 of this released at some point this year. Absolutely love this one. A really good sci-fi title about a station that just grows and grows and grows, and everybody lives inside it, and then it starts cutting off all of like the air supply and stuff like that. Really, well, not air supply, just kind of everything must live in there, if not it doesn't exist kind of thing. Very interesting title, very underrated. I would really recommend it if you want a kind of like dystopian Fallout, Mad Max kind of style horror future kind of thing. Really worth checking out. Next up we have a few odd pieces here and there, which are all self-contained titles, interestingly enough. So first up we have The Tunnel of Summer, Goodbye Despair. I don't know why I called it that. The Tunnel of Summer, The Exit of Goodbyes. Now, I actually just got this for Christmas, so I actually haven't had a chance to read it yet. But I really enjoyed the anime movie I saw at Scotland Loves Anime, so I heard a lot of this expands on it. So I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. Next up, we have one that a lot of you guys actually recommended, and it was out of stock for a long time until eventually it kind of came back in stock, and that is 3 Days of Happiness. Again, don't really know much about this one, but I'm looking forward to checking it out. Next up is one of my favourite titles that I just cried at this one. The Miracles of the Namiya General Store. Absolutely beautiful title. If you ever come across this one, I would recommend checking it out. I'm planning on rereading it sometime this year because I do want to start and do maybe some self-contained, just some general novels, Japan novels, rather than necessarily light novels. But this one was so good, I absolutely cried to bits at it. And that brings me on to the next one, which is The Devotion of Suspect EXO. The author Keigo Higashino, I've just mispronounced that, I apologise, is more well known for doing like thrillers and crime stories and stuff like that. So this one was probably the most well received one that I think was translated. They've got a lot of titles out there, so I thought out of the first ones I'd try it, and I've yet to read it. I probably will go back to it. I did plan on reading it over the Christmas holidays, but I started reading Tatami Galaxy, and then I was kind of at the back of that. I was like, oh, I probably should kind of just kind of catch up on my backlog after that. So next up we have the rest of the Tomihiko Morimi collection that I have, and first up is Tower of the Sun, which was actually the very first novel they wrote. There's a lot of it's a very interesting one. It's not great, I'm not going to be honest. It does pick up towards the end, but the rest of it, the main character is pretty unlikable, to be honest. But there's a lot of stuff that kind of starts in here and then kind of gets referenced again to Tatami Galaxy and the other titles. But yeah, it's not great, but it's not too bad, to be honest. Next up is one that I haven't read, and I've actually had it for quite some time, and that is Penguin Highway. I wasn't too fussed about the movie, but I kind of felt that the novel's going to be a little bit better. I just kind of started reading it over lockdown, and I looked at it and it's like, read the first line and I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this, and I just never picked it up. I want to do a video on all of Morimi's works, so this one will be getting ready in the near future, so I can do that video. Next up is the most recent release, actually not the most recent yen press release of Tomihiko Morimi, and that is Foxtails. And these are a collection of short horror stories, all with a connecting thread. But yeah, very good one indeed. You've got to have a different mindset to what a Western horror would be compared to a Japanese horror. But yeah, I really like this one. It was very unsettling, we should use the word for, but yeah, a very good one. And the other one that I think is probably the most well known is The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. Again, I really loved the movie for this one. I mean, I know the movie, this actually is different because the movie kind of set it as somewhat in the same world as Tatami Galaxy, whereas this one not so much. So yeah, it's still a really good novel. There's just a lot of fun differences between this one and the movie. Again, I might reread this one if I get the chance to do the video, because it's been quite a few years, but I remember it being so good. And yeah, really good one. Next up, we have a favourite on the channel, and that is Classroom of the Elite. That's right, I actually do own this one, despite everybody shouting in the comments to read it. And yeah, I have a few. I'm kind of hit and miss with this one. I seem to find that I actually enjoy every other volume, but when I don't like it, I really don't like it. This was actually the last volume I read. I've actually got 6, 7 and 7.5 still to read. I plan to binge them all, and then at that point I'm probably going to decide whether or not I actually want to keep it, because it's, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff I really like about it, but there's a lot of stuff I really don't. More specifically, I actually really do not like the main character. He's just not interesting at all. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I kind of feel like I want to like this one, but I don't know, it just doesn't really do much for me. It's fine for what it is, but I don't know, it's kind of, I feel like people have really overhyped this one quite a bit, because it's really not one that I'm kind of getting into. And I feel like whenever I do ask, it's like, because I was like, oh well, at what point does Classroom of the Elite get like really good? And people were like saying, oh well, at first people said, oh well, it's like volume 3, and then people were like, oh actually no, it's volume 5, and then when I kind of got up to volume 5, they were like, oh well, actually it's volume 7 or it's volume 8, and I'm just kind of like, well, if you keep pushing it back on seeing when it gets good, is it actually that good? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I really do like about this one, but there's a lot of stuff I really just am not fussed about. I mean, like, volume 2 is probably one of the worst volumes of a light novel I've ever read, but I really hated it. Volume 3 was really good. Volume 4 was okay. 4.5, it's kind of hard to say because it's like, it's side stories, but it's side stories about other cast, but they still force the boring main character into it. Volume 5 was fine enough, but I wasn't fussed about it. I feel like if I hadn't already bought the rest of it, I probably would have dropped it many times over after more or less every volume except maybe after volume 3. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let's go on to another series. Next up, we have 2 volumes of a 4-volume series, and I probably should get back to picking up the rest of it because it is actually a really good series, and that is Katana Gatari Sword Tale. Now, I do have a lot of the Monogatari series up in storage, and I kind of got to a certain point where I just got burnt out on it. Not so much this one. I really enjoyed this one in comparison to the Monogatari series in general, which again, Monogatari, I really did like it. I just kind of felt I got burnt out with the series. There's a lot of, it gets quite difficult to read later on, and I just felt like once I got out of it, I just didn't want to get back into it. I kind of did the same with this one. I read the first set, this is actually technically volumes 1 to 3, I believe, if I remember rightly, and then they kind of bundled it all in one. But then I actually went out and bought the second volume, and there is a reason for that, is that yes, it's got a nice 50% off. So yeah, I mean, you know what, I'm a sucker for good deals, especially on light novels, and yeah, 50% off. But I never went and read it, so I haven't actually went back and read any more of the actual series. I will promise I will get to this one at some point in the year. My plan is get on top of my light novels and then panic because I'm far behind on all of the other series that I'm reading. Yeah. And finally, we have Overlord. Probably one of my favourite series. I say probably, it is one of my favourite series. None of this probably. 14 hardcovers that look absolutely gorgeous. The artwork on the front of them just looks absolutely superb, to the point that it's just a nice one to have collecting. And I really do enjoy the series as well. It is such a great series about a man who really enjoys playing a particular game with his friends, and then ends up getting trapped in that game, and he sets out to find his friends if they are still there. And the twist is that he is essentially the final boss of the world that he's in. So as the series goes on, he starts off being quite helpful and quite nice before eventually becoming the overlord that we know and love him for. What's interesting about this one is that the anime kind of jumps all over around for this one. So the anime for the most recent season, it started off and it did volumes 10, and then it did volume 11 before skipping to volume 14. That's right, so volumes 12 and volumes 13, which probably are the best arc in the entire series, are going to be a movie. So yeah, that's quite interesting, I'd say, in that they've kind of chosen to do the Paladin of the Sacred Kingdom stuff as a movie, because that's going to be very difficult to cram in. But overall, a fantastic series and easily one of my favourites. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of the video. You guys absolutely rock. So that was my entire light novel collection, except the ones I've got in storage. I've got a few others in storage, such as Bottom Tier Character Tomazaki and the Monogatari series. These are ones where I kind of stopped and have very little intention of actually picking up any more volumes at this point, but they're in storage rather than sell them off, so I can come back to them at a later date should I desire to. So, well, what did you think? Was there any series that kind of stood out to you? Was there any series that you were quite surprised that I didn't have? Or was there any series that you kind of think that you might pick up on the back of me rambling on for the last, well, however long it's been? So, the other question is, how many volumes have I got in my collection? Well, the answer is here. Well, that's it from me. If you did enjoy this, consider subscribing and leaving a like. And if you did enjoy this, well, go check out one of the videos over here. There's going to be plenty more light novel stuff all there for you. See you over there.